Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. I'm an analytical hypnotherapist as well as an astrologer, and I am joined today by Anna Parkinson, whose book, Beyond Sex and Soup, I think that title just sticks in your mind. And for me, it sticks in my mind for other reasons too. It's just that it's a really good book. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. That's a lovely introduction.
Well, it's quite right. It's a great book. And one of the things, one of the reasons, well, the reason why I invited you back is because it's easily the best description of what the chakras are and what they are about that I have come across. And so I thought it would be really good to have you back to talk specifically about the chakras. So I'm delighted that you're here.
Great. Well, it's my pleasure to do so. And it's lovely to be here.
In your book, when you talk about the chakras, as you're describing what they're about, you root that description in stories of your own experience, which I thought it was a marvelous storytelling technique that you had there to weave all of that information in with specific experiences to illustrate what the chakras were about. Well, I'm just going to have to tell everyone yet again, if you want to have those beautiful stories, you must read Anna's book. But perhaps you could tell us about the chakras in as wonderful a way as possible, but without the wonderful storytelling.
I first came across the idea of chakras as something active and useful and practical in life when I needed to heal my body. And I learned the beginning of what they can do or what they are from this a wonderful healer who I had, who unfortunately is not alive anymore, Martin Brofman. And he had looked very, very closely at the way in which the body interacts with the essence of what the chakras are about in a very practical way. And clearly what is going on with these centers of energy that run up and down your spine is an interpretation of your physical lived experience second by second or millisecond by millisecond. Because the key thing is that your body doesn't distinguish between what is physical and can be measured and what is not physical and can't be measured. Because in our lives, we simply can't afford the time to do that. If you see a lion coming towards you, you have to judge whether that is something cuddly or something that's going to eat you. And whether you think that is cuddly or whether you think that is going to eat you depends on your past experience. So all these things like memory come into your physical action. And the chakras are located along the spine, coordinating with the organs that govern your physical action, but at the same time corresponding to all that inner action of you, which is who you are. That's the action of your spirit, which is your memory, your desires, your dreams, your emotions, and your reactions. So there is a very precise and logical language, which is true for every physical body, and is spoken through those centers of energy, through the chakras, even though every individual has a different story. So you can say, depending on what the affliction is, you can say, okay, this is a story that has to do with this experience of that situation in your life. And when you actually do a healing, which is looking at using your inner perception to perceive somebody else's inner unmeasurable energy, which we can all do, but which perhaps, some of us are more practiced at than others. But when you actually do a healing, then you see why that issue is a tension for that person. Or you see how it has come about and what other factors influence it. But the body itself has a really precise and logical language that speaks through the energy of the chakras.
The reason I found that so exciting and inspiring, of course, is because it links in very much with my own work as a hypnotherapist and understanding that mind-body connection. And here we have yet another dimension to this, which is, I guess, in my terms, I see it as central points in an energy field that is linked with the emotion, which then also manifests in the body. So it's like maybe an energy center or a conduit between the emotion and the body, if I can put it like that. So it makes complete sense. And in fact, your book has inspired a lot of the imagery now that I'm using with clients who are open to this type of work, whereby I'm using hypnosis and helping them to achieve a trance-like state in which they can draw energy into the chakras that I feel are linked with whatever it is that they're suffering from. So although I'm not seeing the energy and I'm not working as an energy healer or conduit myself, I'm helping them to draw that energy in. And it's proving to be fascinating what's happening in those hypnotherapy sessions. So what you're describing makes complete sense to me.
Well, I'm really interested by that, and I'm really fascinated by you working in that way. I think I'm also interested by the balance between the astrology that you do and the hypnotherapy, because I think what this is all about is a process of discovery of how, in very minute detail, we are connected to very, very large energies that we can't measure, we don't even know about. It's very, very simple to look and say the sun and the moon actually influence the whole of our life on Earth, and that's very obvious. Of course, all the other planets have massive energy as well. And it's really remarkable how people have identified that energy and found it to be an influence on an individual. So this is a similar thing, but from a micro perspective. And the micro perspective is that people have noticed for millennia that you can see a correlation between a particular emotional state and a particular organ in the body. And that's how the language of the chakras work. So in a way, they're like, it's not quite the same as channeling energy, because I kind of look at it almost from the opposite perspective, that an individual is expressing energy. An individual is expressing the energy of the earth. And along the way, for various reasons, because we are supremely complex individuals and amazing creatures, but things can get blocked. And so you don't perhaps come to express, or you feel frustrated that you can't express at some unconscious level. You feel frustrated that you can't express who you are. And there's all sorts of reasons why that might be true. But
so let's look at the specific chakras themselves, because the thing that I found so inspiring was how you were looking at wounds as they relate, different types of wounds as they relate to each of the chakras. That was truly inspirational for me. So if we begin with the root chakra, what is the root chakra about, and what
okay. I will go through. So the root chakra is the beginning of your physicality. So we don't know. I mean, I would say that you come into some kind of physical essence, and so it begins to develop from conception, from that point, from conception, and it continues to develop to the age of about 2 or 3. That doesn't mean that nothing affects it afterwards, but those are the key years for the root chakra. And so the root chakra is the densest part of your physical body, and it's about your structure. So it's about bones, your nose actually, because that's where you take your first breath. And it's also about your everything in you that goes back to the earth. So it's about elimination. So that's how it works. Those organs that have to do with structure or elimination are root chakra issues. But also emotionally, simultaneously, it's about your connection with mother, because she is going to ensure your survival as a physical being. And so the issue that it covers is security. And in your adult life, security may appear to have nothing to do with mother. It's things like your job, your money, home. But actually, the way in which you view those things is heavily influenced by the way in which you've experienced the degree of security you have through that relationship with mother. So that's the root chakra. And you can think of it literally like, you know, the way a plant begins to put roots down into the earth. And then you move up the spine to the sacral chakra. And on the physical level, the purpose of the sacral chakra is to put flesh on the bones and to reproduce the species, because that's your biological function. So the sacral chakra relates to the reproductive organs and the reproductive zones in the body on a physical level, but equally it is about appetite, and it's about the unconscious growth of the body. So it's the unconscious, which is hugely important, because although we think we're very clever, and we are very clever, we don't actually think our way through to very basic situations like, you know, how to go upstairs. Our body does it all for us. And the amount of transactions that our body has to go through in order to get us up a couple of stairs would be exhausting for our conscious mind. So an enormous amount, I mean, I would even go so far as to say 90% of our existence is just transferred to the operation of our unconscious, which is based in the sacral chakra. So that develops between the age of about 3 and 6. And the Hawaiians call it the child in you. And you will always have that child. It doesn't matter how old you get to be. It's like the sap that rises through your body, and it's an essential part of your expression and your growth. And then you have, moving up the spine to the stomach area, you have the solar plexus. And the solar plexus chakra is, on a physical level, it's to do with your sense, well, on a physical level, it's your upper digestive organs. So it's where you take in information, be that food or sight or data, any kind of information that you take in, you process it and you determine whether it's good or bad for you as an individual. You determine whether it's safe or unsafe. So you're judging what to do with that information. So on a physical level, it's the upper digestive organs which perform this function with your food, but it's also the outer expression of your body. It's your muscles, how they work, it's your skin, it's your eyes, because they are the point of observation. And on a non-physical level, it's about your sense of self, who you are in relation to the world that you're in. And that entails all kinds of things like free will, power, freedom, or the lack of it, you know, confidence, lack of confidence, so forth. And that develops between the age of about 6 and 9. Those are really influential years for the solar plexus chakra. And then you come up to the heart chakra. And the heart, on a physical level, is clearly related to the organ that pumps and the breath that we take in. It's related to the lungs. And this is really interesting chakra because it's here, it has a really, really strong physical function in that it actually dominates the physical function. When you stop breathing, that's it, you're done on a physical level. And when you start breathing, that's the beginning of your physical existence. But in all of our language, in all of our perception, the non-physical functions of the heart are central. And we talk about learning things by heart. We talk about my heart is in it or not in it. We talk about passion as being the driver. And all of those things are true. So the heart has this multiple connection. That's the best way to put it.
Sorry.
He agrees.
It's okay. Thank you. He's been
I think your dog agrees with that.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, he is a Leo and it's all about passion. So
Exactly. You can tell him I'm a Leo too. So obviously the heart is involved in relationships, in human relationships. It's involved in so much more, but and it's central. It's central to our lives. It's central to our communication. And I would say that it's central to our learning. But we don't necessarily know that. We're exploring all the time as we go through our lives. The key years of development of our perception of relationships or perception of love and what it's about are the years from 9 to 12. But I would say that we have been learning that lesson also from the point of conception, because like a plant looks for light, we look for love. And it is it's our reason for being. We can't survive by light, but we can survive so long as there's love. And then you come further up the spine to the neck area, and that is the throat chakra. And the throat chakra on a physical level, it governs the thyroid, which balances your energy, amongst other things. And it governs the shoulders, the arms and fingers, and also hearing. And on a non-physical level, this chakra is about your intuition, inspiration, not the deep instinct, which is in the sacral chakra and knows, you know, what you need and what feeds your body. It's the intuition. And here we're beginning to talk about things that are non-physical. We're beginning to talk about the spiritual aspects of your being, which are there for everybody, whether they're recognized or not. There are non-physical aspects of every single individual's being. And some people see this as spiritual, and some people see it as a function of human life and don't look very much beyond that. But it doesn't really matter what you call it. We've all got the same equipment, and the throat chakra perceives things that are going to make you happy and allowing you to set goals for it. And generally they're not very clear, not as obvious as, let's say, your sexual appetite or your physical appetite for food, but they are strong and powerful. And you may be aware of them or you may not. But that's the throat chakra. And then you come to the brow chakra, which is generally associated with the level of the third eye in the center of the forehead. And the brow chakra on a physical level is associated with the hypothalamus. So it's like the conductor of all the chemicals that we call hormones, which promote action or reaction in the body. And it's much deeper in your energy than, let's say, the root chakra. But on a non-physical level, the brow chakra is about your sense of purpose, your mission. What's the point of me? And here we're moving away from, you know, the pure physicality of the fact that you are, you know, your mother and father's son or daughter, your siblings, brother or sister, or, you know, your partner's partner or your workmate's colleague. We're moving into something individual about, what am I doing with my life? You know, what does my life mean to me? And that is what informs your sense of mission. And you may be beginning to pick up a pattern that none of the chakras work without the others. It's not like you can go, oh, okay, I know what my mission is. If you don't know what you want to eat for breakfast, that's not really going to help, because you can't physically carry out your mission without, you know, nurturing your body also. And then we come to the crown chakra, which is located in energetic terms on the crown of your head. On a physical level, it relates to your brain and the entire nervous system running through the body. And on a non-physical level, it's about your connection with a father, because without that essence in the sperm, the creation of your physical body doesn't come into being. And father is associated with authority. Whatever your whatever your views about what authority has been in your life, and whatever your experience of where authority has come from in life, in a fundamental way, for the baby, father is the authority. And this is another thing that you begin to accept the more you work with people, is that the baby's perceptions of what is security and what is authority are completely unaltered by the perceptions of what is right or wrong in the society that they're born into. A baby looks for love, mother is security, and father, birth father, is authority. So your relationship with father tends to influence your relationship with other authorities in your life. So these could be teachers, they could be doctors, they could be employers. But ultimately, the ultimate authority is the source of life. And that's what we call the divine. So ultimately, this is about your relationship with God, or whatever you call the divine. It's your relationship with that essence which brings you into being. And that's a mystery beyond our knowledge.
There's so much, and I think I'm going to start by going right back to the root, because you were talking about issues around security, and I'm just looking back because I wrote a few notes. I was interested in that because the very word root, obviously the connection with the earth is there, and mother, the security. But I was wondering whether perhaps ancestral wounds might appear around this chakra.
When you see an ancestral wound that appears around this chakra, it tends to be mother stuff. It tends to be in the DNA that she has brought into your DNA. Often, when you see a past life wound, it's not necessarily in that chakra. It might be in the throat, or it might be in the heart, or it might be in the stomach. It might be anywhere. But what I sometimes see, obviously when somebody comes for healing, they're coming for healing for them. And I don't always see a past life issue. And in fact, I had no knowledge or preconditions or preconceptions about past lives at all before I started to do healings. And then with some people, I would pick up some really strong stuff, and that either this is an issue for them in the way in which they were born and the way you know, their early development happened, or it seemed to be very much an issue that affected their mother. And that can be really difficult for an individual, actually, because very often they don't know what it is. You know, if somebody's been adopted, or they had a very, very difficult early experience, they probably do know, or they may know, or certainly there may be a way to find out. But if it's been something that, let's say, their mother's mother felt really guilty about, that really strongly affected their mother, and therefore really strongly affected the way they were brought up, you know, dark family secrets are not very often then shared by the very nature of their darkness. And I think that essentially what we have to accept is that that we are all born alone and we will die alone. So we have to move away from our mother connection and our father connection, whether we are happy about it or unhappy about it. And in fact, the more we do that, the more we root ourselves and the more we live for ourselves. That sounds very selfish, but actually, I don't think it is. But the more we live for ourselves, the more compassion and gratitude we are likely to feel for the people who brought us into being.
Yes, because it's also about developing our own sense of identity, which in with aligning to our life's purpose. And if we continue to focus on mother or father in the way that we did as children, it means that we are stuck, we're not developing, we're not growing. So this isn't about detaching and not feeling, it's about putting to rest the childhood issues that are wounding us and holding us back so that we can actually flower and come into alignment with who we are. So it's absolutely a vital part of growing up that we detach with love from both, from, I guess, taking the best of the nurturing without continuing to seek it, because we have to learn how to be nurturing to ourselves, whilst at the same time being forgiving of the fact that our parents are human. And some may have done a better job of attending to our needs than others, but nevertheless, forgiveness and compassion needs to be in place in order for us to move away. Otherwise, we stay in that wounded state. So we're talking about the individual chakras and their functions and the wounds associated with them. But there was something you said, which I think is very important. Somewhere, I think when we got to the throat chakra, you started to talk about how all the chakras need each other and they're working in concert. They need to work in concert with each other. So can you tell us about how we can achieve that balance or that harmony, and explain how the wounding can distort that?
That's a great question. I think when we talk about being grown-ups, we think we've done that. We think it just happens. And in fact, it isn't really like that, because what we do is we grow around our wounds, and that doesn't make the wound go away. And when we are able to make decisions for ourselves and use our energy as we choose to, it is very, very helpful to perceive anything that is blocking us, or anything that is, even a physical discomfort can be a really, or I say even a physical discomfort. My physical discomfort was my whole teacher to start with. So, you know, physical discomfort is a really helpful signpost going, okay, come on now, this doesn't work for you. And then I think the hardest thing to do is to allow ourselves to go back and feel the pain that we experienced as children. Whether we were wrong or right is not the issue. The issue is whether or not it hurt. And it makes us feel kind of stupid and silly and feeble and vulnerable, and nobody likes that feeling. But if you don't, what you do, and in Beyond Sex and Super, the reason that I wrote it is that I wanted to give people a catalogue of tools whereby they can go and use their inner senses to perceive what has been buried in their imaginations or in their emotional history all their lives. Because when you perceive the feeling that you may have felt as a 4-year-old or whatever, it's a real shock to realize that it feels just as fresh as when you felt it, even though it might be 40 years later that you perceive it. And once you perceive it in its fresh, tinned state, if you like, you are in a position to do something with it that you weren't able to do when you were 4 years old. And that's really what the self-healing tools are all about. They are really powerful because you're not 4 years old, because you do have the ability to mother or parent yourself, and you may well be by this time a parent of children, and feel how you would like it to be done. And if you can apply that good parenting to your own childish self, you will find that you can release all kinds of wounds, and that there's a beautiful harmony that appears, an energy that appears that's been cut off.
You know, listening to you, and you're talking about the child self and how we don't really like to go there because ultimately there's that vulnerability. And I was just thinking about how many times people express embarrassment over their childhood pictures. And I think it really is just that feeling of, I didn't like being that vulnerable, that not having control over my life. I'd like to forget that I was a child. And it's very much in line with what happens very often in therapy, where I've regressed someone back to a particular incident that is the root of an issue. And I'm wanting the adult self to have compassion for the child and to give the child love. And there is none to give for that child. There's a complete rejection of the child that they once were. And when that happens, I know this is going to be a much longer healing process than I would have liked, because it's when we cannot accept the child that we were, it means we are not ready to accept ourselves, to forgive ourselves, and to treat ourselves with compassion, which means that wound cannot heal. So
I think that's true, but I also, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. What I think was interesting, or has been interesting in my sort of teaching of this process to people over the years, is understanding that you know, what I'm really trying to teach people is a kind of living in duality. For me, it was quite extraordinary to realize that the first symptom of what became a brain tumor when it was diagnosed was double vision. Because actually now I'm trying to teach people to have double vision, even though physically my eyes are better. Because I would say that, you know, you have all your external senses are vital for your existence. Well, they're not vital, we can manage without them, but basically your external senses like smell, taste, touch, sight, hearing are there to look after your body, keep your body in good shape, and you know, fend well in the outside world. But you've also got internal senses, and most of your life is operating on those internal senses. And although other people don't see your internal life, for you, your internal life is more important than what other people see. And I think that people get stuck with the notion that only the external is real. And therefore they become frightened of the internal imagination. I mean, who, for example, ever tells a child at school what you really need to do is cultivate your imagination? They actually say what you really need to do is work out what 12 divided by 3 is. You know, yeah, it's true that that's quite a useful skill, but equally, the internal world of the child will create jet engines that will change our lives, or the internet, or computers, or whatever. It's their imagination that is creating the world we live in.
Indeed. And I think this is the heart of the matter, because what we're needing to do is learn to trust ourselves, and listening to our bodies, listening to what we sense, is the process by which we begin to do exactly that. So you have given us wonderful food for thought today, Anna, and I want to thank you very much for your time. I remind everyone that the book that Anna has written is called Beyond Sex and Soup, and I will be putting a link to that in the description box. And if people want to find out more about your work, Anna, how do they do that?
Well, they can contact me through my website, which is annaparkinson.com. And I'm on Instagram as Anna Parkinson Healer, or one word. And that's probably the best way to get in touch if people want to find out more.
Wonderful. I'll have the links to those in the description box as well. Anna, thank you so much once again.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm really fascinated by your work as well. So bye-bye, Anna, and thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be looking at messages and signs from our loved ones who have departed. Until then, goodbye.